Hello, everybody, and welcome to Just Branding. Today, we have a very exciting episode for you. We have Ashleigh and Sunny from brand agency Motto. We're really excited to have them on the show. They've written a book called Rare Breed, which we'll dive into soon. And today, we're going to be talking about working with leaders. So welcome to the show, Sunny and Ashleigh.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
Okay, so we're going to dive straight in. We don't mess around on Just Branding. Let's get straight to the juicy bits. The first thing we always tend to like to do, Jacob and I, is to ask our guests about definitions, because brand and branding has loads of kind of weird things floating around in terms of what that even means. Mm-hmm. So to you guys, first of all, let's start with that. What is brand and what is branding to you, and how do you see it at Motto?
Yeah. So I was like, who's taking that one? We subscribe to the idea that a brand is really the sum of all of its parts. There's this common misconception that a brand is a logo or a set of fonts and a color palette. We really like to think of brand as everything, the total experience that a company delivers to the audience, and then in return gets a perception of what that brand means. And so brand is really that core meaning of what something stands for, who it is, what it believes in. All of that combined together is ultimately what a brand is. And I think that this is really a key question and a beautiful one to open up with, because we have this problem within the industry in general where there isn't one place to go. You know, what is a tree? Well, I can clearly see and define that, but what is a brand is so much, bigger than the question itself. And it is confusing and it is kind of complicated. So we like to try to clarify and simplify as much as possible so that, we kind of can reduce some of that when it comes to working therefore in branding.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And just while we're on definitions, I don't know, some of our audience may have heard of Rare Breed, some may not. So for those that haven't, what is a rare breed? And we'll come to kind of your story in a minute and how you came up with the book Rare Breed. But just in terms of that, what is that all about, just as a high level 20,000 foot view of Rare Breed? Sunny, do you want to do that one?
Yeah, so Rare Breed is simply unordinary among the kind at its most basic definition. And it's we have reframed it for leaders, individuals, teams, organizations who have learned to take the parts of themselves that make them unique or rare or different and really celebrate those in their life, work, and career. So Rare Breed is really just about standing out in a sea of sameness.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So let's get into that, but let's start with your story. I think it would be great to hear your story, because a lot of our audience have come from not exclusively, but some have come from a design background and are starting to grapple with strategy. And I know that's probably a journey that you guys have been on yourselves. Talk to us about that, and start from the beginning or as far back as you want to go.
Yeah, well, we go way back.
Yeah, we met a snowball fight in our early teens, and have grown up together and went to college together. And in our early 20s, we dropped out of college together to start Motto, and we had $250 to our name. And we started in a town where there were a couple of key established players, maybe 3 advertising agencies that had all of the town on sort of lockdown. And here come these 2 young girls where, in a world where 60-ish admin made the rules. And pretty much everybody told us that we would fail. And it became the battle cry, if you will, of trying to be audacious enough and believe in ourselves enough that we could, in fact, change the conversation around branding, but most importantly, launch our careers from a very small town into working with global brands, which now we're in our 15th year. So needless to say, we were able to quiet the naysayers a little bit, but we started, working with leaders and teams very early on to help them identify sort of the big idea, what the purpose was. That's why we named our company Motto. Motto is a reason to get out of bed every day. It's the short aphorism of what you believe in and what you stand for. And so it became kind of the centerpiece for the work that we were doing very early on. And so, we started really small, working with like local clients, and then very quickly emerged out of that, got some press for the work that we were doing and the kind of company that we were, and quickly sort of catapulted out of that into working with and attracting clients from really all over the country and now globally. So now we have clients as big as Google and Hershey's and 20th Century Fox. But we also have a lot of emerging startups and challenger brands that are coming out and trying to flip the giants on their head. And we really run the gamut of being very category agnostic. So we like to work in, there's no problem from a leadership standpoint that we probably haven't seen or worked on. So any kind of challenge that is put in front of us, we try to work with that company and organization to solve through it and lead them to a point of clarity. And then from there, reveal that new clarity within their brand.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting because you brought up a good point, Matt, about how does anyone get into strategy work? Very early on, Sunny and I, when I think I was 22 when I started Motto, when we started Motto, and I don't think we really knew necessarily what branding was, so to speak, because we did start off more in the design lane, right? Yep. We were kind of a little company that was designing logos and band posters and album artwork and the typical things that maybe most graphic designers start out working on. And then we just realized that there was always something intuitively within us that was kind of saying, but this isn't it. There's so much more to this. There's so much more to this story than it comes to designing a brand. There's so much behind that, the thinking behind that goes into it. And so we just started becoming really fascinated with this world of brand and this idea about that it's actually something we're trying to influence the meaning and the perception of this company or this product or this service or whatever it is to create something significant and truly meaningful. And, I think a lot of people get into strategy on accident, like they're either copywriters or they're in design or they're in some other sort of lane. And they ultimately find their way to strategy because something inside of them is kind of searching for something more. And I find that's why most people get an interest in strategy to begin with, because there's just like a little click that begs the question, why are we doing this? And once you start asking yourself that question, you start realizing the underpinnings of what brand strategy is really all about, which is that clarity, that point of crystallization around a concept or an idea.
Yeah. And I think I would add to that too, that what made Motto sort of unique in those early days is that we didn't have another agency to look up to. There was no one that mentored us. I was going to be a veterinarian and Ashleigh was going to be a journalist. Like we couldn't have been further away from being in the branding space. So we drop out of college, no blueprint, never have worked for another agency at all, and built this blueprint, tore up the rule book of what we knew or saw around us and said, how do we carve out our own path? How do we blaze our own trail? And I think that's what kind of that own foolishness, perhaps, or maybe even naivety that we didn't know and we didn't have anyone else's playbook. It made it very easy for us to create our own because we were just curious. And we would go into these teams and organizations and start asking these very deep, profound questions. What's the purpose? Why does it matter? Why are you doing this? Why are you coming to work every day? What are you trying to accomplish in the world? And they'd never been asked those questions. Strangely enough, they were the most simplest questions, and yet nobody was asking them. It was more about, what kind of logo do you need? What kind of website do you need? But no one was actually asking them the questions of, what are you trying to do in the world with this business? And what purpose are you fighting for? And those fundamental questions lead to some very surprising answers. And I think that that's kind of where we started. And it became the very linchpin for everything that we do. It now has become not only the book that we've written, but also the way we've shaped our company.
So such a similar story to me, and I think what struck me when I was kind of coming through that similar journey was when you'd ask people, because I think any designer who wants to do meaningful work, right, they're going to get to a point in their careers where they're going to be dictated to, and at some point they think, well, I don't understand this, so can you explain it? And the most disappointing thing that I found, probably similar to you, is when you ask those questions like, well, what's the purpose? Why do you even exist? And people don't know the answers. They're kind of like a little bit taken aback, and then they freak out. And at that point, then you have two choices. You either go, well, go off yourself and find the answer and come back so I can do some good work. Or I'll tell you what, why don't I work with you to find those answers? And then suddenly you're a strategist. Suddenly you're in the realm of strategy. You know, you either sink or swim, basically.
Yeah.
Jacob, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to jump in to something earlier you said about being the only 3 in your neighborhood, which is amazing. It would be a credible thing to do now, where there's like 3,000.
Right, I know.
Now everybody's a branding agency. Everybody.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, like, what was your big break? Like, when did you suddenly realize that you wanted to do strategy, or that you got like a huge client, or like, what was your big break moment?
You know what? I don't know. You might have a different answer. I don't know if there was one big moment. I think
it was a series of moments, that sort of led to the breakthrough. I think there were several things that happened early on in our career that led us into being recognized. And I think early on, the Count Me In contest, that the competition that Ashleigh won, we got booed off stage and came back to win the whole damn thing. We were the youngest female awardees of that, and that was a really, really big moment for us, because NBC was there. We had press. We won all this huge entrepreneurial package, and it was kind of a pivotal moment. We actually talk about it in the book in some detail about what that was like. To do that, but that was kind of
Sonny, what was it? What was it exactly? Some sort of competition, like business competition, was it?
Now I get to be embarrassed. Thanks.
I wouldn't call that an embarrassment. I would call that a complete and total, Phoenix rising.
Well, all right, I'll take that. We had been doing strategy work before this point, but what Sonny's referring to is this event that we decided to pitch our business to this organization whose goal was to take micro female-owned businesses, so businesses under the $250,000 revenue range annually, and sort of grow them and turn them into $1 million businesses. And pretty early on in our career, we decided, we're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Because we were like a year and a half in the business, I think, at that point.
Yeah,
and almost ready to quit. We were at a point where we had been pretty crushed, like mentally and emotionally.
And when you bootstrap your own business, some agencies are formed because they've got $1 million clients, and these people go off on their own, and it's a sweet deal, right? Ours was not struggle. A sweet deal. Ours was not a struggle. Ours was the opposite of that. I mean, every penny mattered, every dollar counted. It was really hard for us to start making money. I mean, we did make money, but at the end, it's still quite small. So we decided to pitch the business at this business event, and I had to prepare a speech that essentially pitched our agency to a panel of very esteemed judges, women who were kind of like the Floyd Mayweathers of female entrepreneurship. These ladies knew their shit. And I got up the day before the event to practice my pitch, and they were going to give us some tips, some tricks, and some feedback to improve our presentation for the next day. And I got up there and I went blank. I forgot my name. I couldn't even explain what we do, what our business was, how we make money, what we do for our client, nothing. I
was like, whoa.
I was so nervous. I was so nervous, so naive, so nervous. So
well, you were like 23. So,
yeah,
and
so
everybody else was like
double
double our age. We were the youngest women there, and it was super intimidating.
But so full of self-doubt and, like, I don't belong here, having that imposter syndrome that creeps in every once in a while. And I basically cried myself off the stage. And
well, the judges toured.
The judges, there was one in particular that really didn't fancy me too much. And
I just picture that sheep hook, like bring it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was very much like that.
She
Except I did it to myself because nobody was pulling me off. I ran for the hills. It was so embarrassing. But she made me feel like I didn't belong there. I wasn't ready for this. And so we spent the night, like
in the bar.
This is a way long story. We don't have time for this, but if you want to know the full story, you can read the book. But basically,
it's very detailed.
I got drunk. I went to the bar. I started crying. I felt sorry for myself. And Sunny, the way that she always does, and what is wonderful when you have a partner like that lifts you up when you're down, she was just like, we're gonna fight this. So she rewrote the pitch because I went to sleep. She rewrote the pitch on some bar napkins. And the next morning we went to breakfast, had some pancakes, and I was ready to go. I had packed my bags, and she said, you know what, if you don't get back up and do this, you will regret this for the rest of your life. And so I was like, it just fired me up, and I found the courage to get on stage. I was the last one in line. I was the last one to make the pitch. I got up there and I did a pretty damn good job and got the award.
But she got a standing ovation, which was from the people who had kind of criticized her I think they couldn't believe that she had actually come back because we slid in like right before they were going to go on stage, and they had sort of said, that we weren't. They figured we weren't coming back, and we did show up, and she ended up getting a standing ovation. It was a pretty pivotal moment because we were very much at the crux of our business, and that we were very hungry. We were not really able to pay our bills, and we had very little clients, and we were really struggling. And it was make or break at that moment. It was the kind of shot in the arm that you needed to keep going. And that happened to be one of them. And that sort of propelled us into some awareness. And then from there, we started to get some clients. We got a really cool B Corp client, one of the very first B Corps, as a matter of fact. They make the brownies that go in Ben & Jerry's ice cream, landed them. That was a really big project for us. And then sort of from there, we kept just getting, people heard about us, and they were like, who are these women? What is this company? And then that's how it sort of, it just went from there.
That is so inspirational. I find both of you incredibly inspirational whenever we speak. And I think that is testament to, your courage and bravery. And, I guess it probably didn't feel like that at the time, but now what a great story. So I guess what I would say to folks is, put yourself out there like Sunny and Ashleigh, like try stuff, get it out there. It's not going to be easy. You might run off stage crying, but you can turn it around, get up, keep punching. And I think I heard a quote somewhere, and it said, the more times you get up to bat, the more times you're going to get out, right? Mm-hmm. And I assume that's a baseball analogy. I'm British, so I don't really understand that. But I kind of get the sentiment, right? Yeah. You've got to keep getting up. You've got to keep getting up. You're going to get out occasionally. You're going to get knocked down. But ultimately, if you've got the passion, if you've got the belief, and you have the people around you that can keep you buoyant, use it to your advantage. So let's get on to Rare Breed. So you've been running the agency, you've been doing some strategy stuff. Where did this idea to write a book, this crazy idea to write a book, come from?
Well, to be honest, it kind of, we had in the past talked about writing a book, but it was never anything we took very seriously. And one day it just kind of fell into our lap. Sunny had a conversation with somebody who wanted her to be his mentor. And he said, have you ever written a book? You just have like such a gold mine of thoughts and ideas and motivation and all of this stuff. And I believe everyone would want to read it. And Sonny like blew the
guy off. I was
unfortunately,
like,
I mean, well,
I was like, I don't want to write a book. No, we're not going to write a book. But then we wrote a book.
Yeah. So kind of one thing led to another, and we started just framing this idea, and I don't know what exactly triggered it. We just started taking it seriously, and you're like, you know what? We do want to write a book. And when you're an author for the first time and you start saying that, you have no idea what's ahead of you. You do not, I mean, it's exhausting. It's painful to write a book. Especially if it's a book that's like an expression of yourself and your soul and all of your hard work and your thoughts and your feelings. It's hard to do it. But we started thinking about, what do we want our book to be about? And we had a conversation years prior with Sonny's dad, who was a really good mentor to us. And we always went to him. He was a successful business person, had built himself from the coal mines of West Virginia, a nobody in everybody else's mind, into a very successful entrepreneur who ran a commercial construction company. Yeah. And so we always go to him for insight and for help. And he said to us one time, he's like, you guys are a rare breed. Not everybody's going to get you. Not everybody's going to love you. It's going to be hard, but the ones who do get you, the ones who can see you for your value and what you are worth, they will never forget you. And so we started like having this like, oh my God, a rare breed. Like, that's such a cool idea. Like, what does it mean to be a rare breed? And it just flew from there. And we started to really start to connect some of the dots in the business experience that we had working with leaders and seeing the rare breeds that we had worked with and the icons that throughout history that, you spot someone, you're like, oh, that's a rare breed. There is no one like that on earth. But we started kind of connecting these dots around what makes them them, what makes them so unique and so special and such a gift to the world. And we started putting these virtues into place. Really the vices, things that usually what we find is there's these things inside of you that you've been told your entire life not to be. Your parents, your mentors, your teachers, everybody's like, no, you're to this, you're to that. This is what you need to be doing. This is how you need to be successful. Go down this path, have a plan B, put your head down, stop being so weird, blah, 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 blah. We're constantly bombarded with this voice that isn't ours. And
that really became
and it just kind of grew from there, and it blossomed from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we started to recognize patterns and traits, and I really think it started with us, right? We defied the odds. We were the rose that grew from the concrete. We were suppressed by many people around us, by those who doubted us, people who didn't really see the value and didn't think that we were capable of building anything. And so first it was about trying to prove them wrong and force your way, elbow your way into a lane. And I think that understanding what that trajectory looks like for your own life, when you're 15 years in, you start to have something to say about it because you were able to figure out what those things were. And I think back to my dad's conversation, we put a pin in that conversation happened probably a year and a half, 2 years into our business. And it now became the concept of the book. And it was what he reminded us was, you have these inherent traits within you. These are the things that make you who you are. Don't be ashamed of them. Celebrate them. Let them off the leash. Try to find ways to make who you are the key to your success. Don't shy away from the traits or, vices that people say that you shouldn't be or shouldn't do. And really that became the thesis of the book, which is there's 7 traits that society tells you are counterintuitive to your success. And we have completely reframed those as virtues.
So walk us through the 7. Can you do that
Yeah.
for us? Would that be okay?
So the 7 are rebellious, audacious, obsessed, hot-blooded, weird, hypnotic, and emotional. And these are all things that people tell you are counterintuitive to your success. They're something that can be as uplifting as they are undoing. And so it was really important as we were defining the traits. And when we started to write the book, we had hundreds of them. I mean, they all sort of, we had whiteboards full of vices and virtues and what kind of connected them all. But what we found was they kind of laddered up to, one of these 7 traits. And what was interesting about it is the more we explored them, the more we realized that they had this dark side. And what really fascinated us was the dark side, because what people have and what they embody is once they have these traits, they sort of can lie dormant, and they're in them, but they don't exactly know how to activate it or utilize it to some effect. And either it becomes something where it's really dangerous, or it actually becomes something that ends up kicking down every door that they ever came across. So we spent time really digging into not just telling you to be rebellious, but rather showing you what it means to be one of these traits, both in the positive, but also what it means to be that in the negative, and really go deep on what that looks like for individuals as well as companies.
Could you give us an example of one of your top 3 favorites from those 7, for example?
I would say, one that comes to mind immediately is, the king of weird, like a trait.
What traits are our favorites? Man.
Oh, I know. I'm like, oh, that's like,
I mean,
I write like hundreds of aphorisms in the book.
I mean, I think that the first 3 in the book are actually really special to us. They're audacious, rebellious, audacious, and obsessed. And with those qualities, we've been able to harness those for good, to make a difference. We have always wanted to be ones who really break the status quo, who don't accept business as usual, but try to do something about what doesn't work and try to put systems and things and thinking in place and ideas in place that help to shape perhaps a new type of reality or something better. So we very much personally identify with having that rebellious spirit. And also audacity. There's this sense about being an audacious person where you kind of do what other people can't. You do what other people won't, because you have a very big vision. Usually you're highly ambitious, and there's a certain, I don't know if I would use this, well, probably use the word arrogance about it, that is almost necessary for you to believe that you can do something and make some kind of difference and some kind of change. So, and then the third one is obsessed. I think we have some dangerous qualities that relate to obsessed, and kind of the idea of going all in on something and eating, sleeping, and breathing what you love, and kind of, going down some of those paths. And it's a curse and it's a strength. It's a blessing and a curse, but I think that those 3 are probably 3 that we've got some heart for sure.
So in the book as well, what I think I found quite exciting about it is that although these are traits, and you kind of touched on this earlier, although these are traits embodied in individuals, of course, brands are often built by human beings, right? Yeah. And often built by leaders at the top who exhibit some of these traits. So I've got the book here, and I remember just reading, I just looked it up. You reference, for example, there's loads of references throughout the book, so definitely grab hold of the book if people are interested in kind of going deeper. But for example, you have the story of Wildfang, who, do you want to talk, I think that might be, an example that would be quite helpful for our listeners. Do you want to talk us just briefly about that and show how it fits into one of these traits? Can you?
Yeah, we'd love to.
Sure, yeah.
We call it fuck norms. I mean, that's the first The first chapter one, fuck norms. The way that the book is structured, I should probably just mention this really quickly. It's organized by the 7 vices, and then underneath each of the 7 vices is a series of mantras, and these are essentially aphorisms, mottos, mantras, things to essentially live your life by and to be able to embrace. And one of the first chapter under rebellious is fuck norms. We talk about an entrepreneur, Emma McElroy. She is the founder and CEO of a brand called Wild Fang. They're based out of Portland and have grown to New York and LA. But, you know, her and a friend of hers were like ex-Nike people. They used to work in consumer insights and marketing and branding at Nike, and had always kind of wanted to wear men's clothing. You know, they liked the fit of a jacket and a graphic tee and, you know, stuff that was designed for men that never quite looked right on a female body. So they had a lot of gender norm breaking to do. And they set out to create a company that basically takes men's silhouettes and concepts and turns them into pieces that fit women and female bodies. And so, you know, that whole idea of like fucking a norm, literally like breaking the status quo on something and turning it into something that other people can respond to and relate to. You know, there's an entire community of people in the world who don't want to just shop in the men's department because it's the men's department, or the women's department because it's the women's department, or do whatever society's telling us we need. Like, what if I want to wear, you know, like a tux? Like, I should be able to rock that if I want to, but I want one that's going to fit me. But there wasn't anything like that existed. I don't know. Sonny could rock a tux for sure. I wish I could.
That would just look weird. You could totally rock it. You could totally rock it.
But it's examples like that. It's brands like that. It's leaders like that, right? Yeah. Who are out to do something dramatic and different. And in a way, it's like in doing that, in creating Wild Fang, they have given a voice to so many people who never could shop the way they wanted to and who couldn't express themselves. Our clothing is in many ways an expression of who we are, who could never find where to go to buy something that they feel was authentic and fit them right in their personality. So that's just one example of a story that we tell out of many about how to live through one of these virtues. Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great example, and you know, what's fascinating is particularly when you play in the startup sort of SME arena, which I think all of us in this episode do play in. You definitely come across these people, right? When you go into the more corporate world, I find that people tend to be you know, playing the game a little bit more. There's a little bit more politics going on. But when you're working with a leadership team, or even an individual CEO or managing director who owns the company independently, you know, these are really where the rare breeds, you find them. That's what I find. And so what I'm fascinated in talking to you about, just in the kind of the closing few moments, is when you're working with a rare breed, right? When you're in front of them and their team and they're, you know, most people would be terrified, right? And, you know, particularly younger people kind of entering the strategy space, they've never kind of got to grips with rare breeds. So first step, I guess, is to say, read Sonny and Ashleigh's book. You'll get to kind of get the mindset a little bit. But do you have any other kind of thoughts and tips, particularly in sort of dealing with these types of people, and particularly in regards to helping them see the value of brand strategy for them and their businesses?
Well, are you talking about people that are within the organization that are rare breeds themselves and they work for a company that is or isn't, or has these traits?
But I mean, I was more going for like, say a designer who's starting to work with a company and the leader is a rare breed. But also, I guess you're right. You know, anybody working within a business and the leader is a rare breed, you know, I guess both in a weird way need to, if you kind of see the value of brand strategy yourself, you need to try and convince a rare breed, or you might need to start working with a rare breed in order to kind of get the right information to do your work really well. Have you got any thoughts on how to do that? Like, how do you do it at Motto?
Well, so something that we've really, I would say we're pretty good at it now because we've been doing it a long time, but, you know, we go through a really serious intake process for our clients now, where we are looking for a specific caliber of team or company or leader that we know have the qualities that not only are willing to change, but they're brave enough to go through the steps that it needs to change. But also, most visionaries need a co-pilot. They need they need a doer. So you've got the dreamer and you've got the doer. So if you are, what we're finding is in these organizations is you have people who are within the organization who are rare breed talent or employees or people that think that way, and they're trying to change the organization from the inside out. And then you have leaders at the top who might be rare breed, and the people that they have underneath the company are not exactly equipping them to be able to fully realize that dream. So if you are tasked with, you know, trying to solve a problem for a company like that, I think first and foremost, you have to understand what your gift is. What are your gifts? What are the things that you're going to bring to the table that can help accentuate or improve that company's outcome? And also realize what's not a good fit and what is a bad fit, because that is probably the hardest thing that we've learned over the years is you will lead many people to the ledge, but they will not leap. And so if you are within that realm of trying to find clients that you can actually transform, you have to be looking for the right kinds of qualities, characteristics, and traits in order to be able to do your best work. The reason that a lot of designers and people that are strategists and they end up very frustrated, it's because they did not find the right fit. They're working with a company who just wants the topical, and you can't transform somebody who doesn't want to be transformed. And so what we, at least in our experience, we've gotten extremely diligent about trying to interview our clients just as much as they're interviewing us, because I want to know who I'm going to be working with. What do you like? Are you going to let me help you? Because if you're not, and your team is not, or you're the kind of leader that everything within your organization and everyone within your organization is trying to make change from within, but you're that leader that isn't allowing them to move you forward, it just crushes morale. And I think that's what a lot of new designers and young designers just get wrong, is they think unfortunately, I think they think too small, and they don't actually think about all the things that are actually really important, which are what is the dynamics, what is the culture and the DNA of this company that I'm actually working? What are their behaviors and patterns, and how do they behave when no one's looking? And if you can't align that, it makes it very hard to do any kind of work of significance. I mean, like we have a saying at Motto, a lot of good agencies can make you look real pretty, but not everybody can make you matter. And that's the truth. You have to be able to make a company matter. You can't just you can't dress them up nice. You actually have to give them substance. You have to be able to give them something to say, not just something to sell. And that's where, I think if I were to give any tips at all, it's be like, figure out what the gifts are, what the strengths are, what the traits are that you have, that you bring to the table. And then find out what companies and leaders and teams align with that, so that when you go to do that work, that you are able to look back on it and say, I didn't just make something pretty, I actually made something matter.
That's awesome. Ashleigh, you got any other thoughts? Like, for example, let's say you've done your due diligence, you think, yeah, we're a good fit. Then kind of as you start working in those environments, what kind of things do you deploy to kind of do your best work?
Yeah, I mean, we look for a lot of what is the triggering motivation? So when we've got a client and let's just say they are a rebel, or let's just say that they are an emotional rare breed or an obsessed rare, whatever kind of rare breed they are, because you can be all kinds of rare breeds. Rare breed isn't just one thing. We look, I think that the most successful that you can be requires you to be able to understand someone else. And so when you can understand someone else, when you can say, okay, now I'm seeing this person and I'm hearing what they're asking of me. I need to get under that surface. So I love to be able to work with people. It's like a date. You're learning about this person. Like, do I like you? Do we want to be friends? Like, tell me about who you are, where are you from, all kinds of stuff conversation needs to happen. You can't just execute a brief. You have to learn about what someone wants, what they desire, what are they looking to do, what kind of transformation do they feel like they need to take? What kind of pivot are they in? What do they see for their future? Like, if you can start to understand those things and get clarity around that, you have a much greater chance of helping them succeed in that vision. I think a lot of people just don't take the time and effort and energy to understand what our clients want from us and what they need from us. What kind of, what are we here to help them do?
Because there's always a problem to solve.
There's always a problem to solve. And no one client is ever the same. Every client that we have is even though we have systems and processes in place that help us know what to do and when to do it, every client we have is a completely new experience for us, because you're dealing with people and everyone is different. Everyone has their own personality. Every team has their own dynamic. Every company has their own culture. So every time we work with a new client, our learning curve is completely new. Even though we know what we're doing, we have to learn that client from scratch. And you have to tailor your approach and your way of doing things to, I believe to do what they need, because they're the ones that you're doing this work for. So I think understanding is so underestimated. And if we just took the time to understand people a little bit more, I think the world and business and design and branding would be so much better.
Well, and maybe even having people that I think also are, you get a lot of people who are really uneducated about brand. And I think that makes it that much harder, because you're working with people who actually, they're writing terrible briefs. They're sending you these RFPs you could punch holes in them all day long. And you've got people who actually really, are in a brand manager position and actually don't know what they're doing. And you find yourself trying to spend the majority of your time actually educating them on why these things are important.
But I think that is really important, to educate, to be an educator.
Yeah. You have to be an educator first, because that's part of the role. Like, you have to be able to educate.
You can't expect people, to know what you're talking about, or what, because if designers and strategists and branding people can't even answer the questions, how would we expect everyone on earth who owns a business to know what we're even talking about, what these terms mean, right? So whatever you learn, you should therefore then pass forward and help your client help themselves through that education. Be a teacher to them.
But I also think that there could be like a little bit of help on the
maybe they could help themselves too.
Like, just Google it, or like start somewhere.
It's complicated though. It's a little more nuanced than that, as we all know.
It definitely is. But yeah, no. But something to Matt, back to your question about figuring out what the trait is. So something that people could do if they're listening to this is to actually go to rarebreedquiz.com and take the Rare Breed quiz, because you can actually find what your dominant trait is, and we go into great detail about what that primary virtue is, and then how to use it in your life and work and career. And we've had close now to 30,000 people take it.
I did it last night, actually. I found out.
What's your virtue?
I saw it.
Did you?
Come through.
Obsessed. Flex
Yep.
biceps is the brackets. So
He's obsessed with just branding. That's what he's obsessed with.
obsessed with branding, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And
I mean-
I like it how you like equate it to like celebrities like Prince or Elon Musk, because that was like
Mhm.
kind of just brought it down to earth,
Yeah.
It was important for
And
us to do that.
I think it's a cool thing to do for yourself, and it's an even cooler thing to do with people you work with.
Mhm.
Have someone you're working with go take the quiz too, because that now they know their virtue, you know your virtue, and you can almost start to respect each other more for who you are. I can, now that I see you, now that I know you're obsessed, I'm going to be better equipped to know how I need to speak with you and deal with you, right? And what I need to be able to do to help you do whatever you want to do. So it's just a mutual respect thing. I just believe that the more we understand each other, the easier life can be. I mean, we've got such an opportunity here to really get to know who we are and who the people are that we work with on a much deeper level. And in doing that, I think really great things can come.
Like, don't send that man a deck with typos in it.
No.
Face
He'd
off.
probably freak out.
But that's really what branding is all about, really, is finding out who they are and how you can actually connect with them. So
Yeah,
I think it's great.
It's a fascinating quiz. I mean, it's mind blowing how many people have taken it. And then, what we did beyond that was we took it a step further, and we created a YouTube show where we sit down with cultural provocateurs. We've sat down with Charlemagne the God. We've sat down with Bretman Rock, YouTube beauty influencer. We just sat down with PJ Morton from Maroon 5, and we interview different rare breeds, and we go real deep for an hour about how they have turned that vice into a virtue. How has it? Where have doors been shut on them because of that virtue and vice? And then when has it also unlocked those doors? And it's been truly remarkable to see how different the conversations are between each guest. Even if we're talking to two rebels, their path and their journey are completely different, and the way that they've leveraged it in their life has been so interesting to hear. I mean, I'm beyond fascinating every time we sit down with somebody, because we learn so much about who they are and what led them to identify with that trait, and it becomes the thing that they're sometimes, once they've harnessed it, they know how to use it, and it really unlocks all of their opportunities for them.
And it's beautifully produced. I watched the episode last night, and it's really well done. So go check it out on YouTube.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about the 7 traits. Like, what is the most common, or I guess top 3, like most common traits that people have?
The biggest one right now is actually emotional.
Yeah,
that's the one which I think is really interesting, because we're collecting this data. We haven't shared it with anybody, but I think it could be very valuable to share what the sentiment of people is right now, given the political landscape and what's going on in our world. The amount of emotional people that are out there is staggering. It's unbelievable. And then there's quite a few weirdos and some audacity in there as well, and quite a few people who are obsessed. But emotional has been the one that's probably been the most. And I'm so curious. I'm like, what if we had done that 5 years ago? Like, would emotion be the trait that was the most compelling, or is it something else that would be even in a few years from now, will there be another trait that tends to dominate the landscape? So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, they're all kind of equal, though, for the most part. A lot of people, that's the beauty of the quiz that we created. We worked with somebody really incredible who was a professor and a psychologist, and we worked with her to curate those questions so that you can't really know when you're reading the question, you don't exactly know if there's a right answer. So if you're like weird, there's not one question where you're like, oh, I'm the weirdo, so I'm going to choose this question. We didn't do it like that. It's actually extremely thoughtful, because we worked to make sure that you couldn't kind of guess what you were going to be. And that's what's been interesting. And then we've had a lot of people ask us if there's like a primary and secondary, which in the earlier versions of the quiz, there was a primary and secondary trait. So you could be like audacious, and then your secondary trait could be like obsession, which happened to be mine. And Ashleigh, we've never revealed those, but you were audacious.
Come on, reveal away.
Emotional and audacious.
Come on.
Emotional
was what?
and audacious. Emotional and audacious. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Those two are like
I've
at
not
odds.
taken this quiz yet. The first thing I'm going to do after this, it's like 11 o'clock in the UK. So
Right.
I am
Tomorrow
gonna go to
morning,
bed.
first thing when you have a cuppa.
First thing,
have a cuppa.
cup of coffee, cuppa. I'm going to get on there and do that quiz. Ladies, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the show.
Yeah,
I think your tips have been, superb. Get to know your clients better, get to understand people, take that time to get under the skin of the problem, educate them along the way. Don't be afraid, be brave, exhibit some of these traits that you've highlighted in Rare Breed. And I think, it's been a super inspirational episode and an honor to have you both on. I'm sure I speak for Jacob when I say that. So thanks so much. And what we'll do is we'll drop some links to your book and to the quiz, etc., in the show notes. But yeah, is there anything you else you ladies want to kind of say, just to kind of sum up? Is there any other kind of parting thoughts you want to leave with us?
I think that we had talked about this earlier, but for a lot of the people listening, I think one thing that I would remind us all is that we're going to hear no. You're going to hear no more than you want to hear no. And what you do with that no, it can mean the difference between success or failure. Rare Breed was rejected 18 times before it went to a bidding war. And it was turned down by every major publisher. And everyone told us that we couldn't go back with the same name. But we did. We didn't listen. And we went back to all the same publishers that told us no, and eventually went to a bidding war. And we actually rewrote the manuscript to all the letters. We tacked up all the letters of rejection in our office around us and wrote to each one of the people that said no to us.
After we cried, of course.
We did.
Or I cried.
Emotionally. Audaciously and emotionally cried.
Ash was like, I'm
like, those bastards.
She was like, forget it. And I was like, we can't quit. But no, it's true. I mean,
it sounds so cliche.
It does, but
it
actually is very meaningful to people who don't turn the no into a yes. You have to turn the no into a yes, because otherwise you will just hear no and you will quit. Because no is easy. It's easy for anybody to tell you no, but it's much harder for you to, again, to be the rose that grew from the concrete. You have to be able to fight oppression. You have to be able to swing for the fences. You have to be the one to throw the knockout punch, not keep taking the black eyes. And I really believe that that's why people go on to greatness, is because they were just too stubborn to quit.
So folks, don't quit. Keep doing what you're doing. It's been awesome to have you. Jacob, any last words? I'm going to sign off. Thank you for coming on. Jacob, do you want to have the final last words?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sunny and Ashleigh. So go check out Motto and Rare Breed. And it was a pleasure having you guys.
Thank you both so much. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Thank you.
All right,
Cheers.
adios.
Bye.